Welcome back to Cast Me to Hell with me, Seb.
And with me, Robbie.
And we are back with episode 38. And this time we're straight back from the cinema for another review. And we have seen Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City.
Yeah, we are back, straight back from the cinema on a very bitter and foggy Gloucester night. We haven't actually spoke about this film, have we? Because
we had a few little moments, but that's about it, wasn't it?
Well, whenever we go to the cinema together, I think naturally you want to talk with whoever you've seen the film with. But
we try to avoid it.
Yeah, we try to avoid it.
We try to keep our thoughts in, push them down.
Push them down. And I think straight off the bat, I think it's worth kind of noting that we're both fans of Resident Evil as a franchise, aren't we?
Yeah.
You like the games.
I do like the games, but I'm not as much as, say, Bobby, who is a proper full-on, the second one's out, he'll be like, I'm going to take some time off work just to have it, just to corrode it for days,
basically,
kind of thing.
I'm
not that level. I'm not that level of gamer. My job doesn't let me do any of that stuff anymore.
Well, I've played Resident Evil since the first one came out. The one I remember most was 1998, Resident Evil 2. I remember, in Gloucester, near the bus station where that Thai kitchen is?
Yeah.
Next to there used to be a game shop. It burnt down. I don't know if it was an insurance job.
Oh, yeah.
And in there, when Resident Evil 2 came out, they had a cardboard cutout of one of the police officer zombies from the RPD.
Oh, yeah.
And it's always stuck with me since. And if you listen to our first episode where we talk about 5 of our top horror moments, one of mine actually is seeing the first zombie in Resident Evil on the GameCube remaster.
Yeah.
And so I kind of went into this film knowing the franchise a bit more and picking up some more of the kind of Easter eggs and stuff like that. And I think because of that, I think I enjoyed it a bit more than you. As always with the show and with our reviews, we're going to keep the first 15 minutes or so spoiler free, then we're going to get stuck in. Yeah. So we'd recommend, going and watching this, even if you listen to our initial thoughts and then you go and watch it and then come back and listen to us discuss it in depth.
Because I'm always, no matter how I even feel about a film, I'm always an advocate for going to see it. And if you can, go and see it in the cinema. Because I just think it's better to enjoy it. I think it's better to make your own opinion on these things. So you can listen either way, whichever way we say. But it is kind of I think it's important to make your own decision. But also to experience it in your own way, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's definitely, it's a good experience in the cinema.
Yeah, and I mean... So we went. This is the opening night in the UK.
Yeah,
I believe.
We're a week behind.
We're a week behind America, aren't we? So it wasn't a packed showing. It was probably about 10-15% of the people. 10-15% capacity.
Yeah,
but that's not uncommon. Pandemic and. Cinemas
the cinema was quite empty in general. We did say when we walked in today, actually, the cinema was quite empty. I do think there's a little bit of, it is very cold right now. And to be honest, it just doesn't make you want to go anywhere. You just want to stay in the house all the time. We're at that point in the UK where we're into those cold winter months where as much as we want to go out and do stuff, the second we actually try to go out and do it, we're like, fuck this. Yeah. It's just like, I'm just going to watch something at home.
Yeah, basically.
I just talked about seeing things in the cinema, but at the same time, don't know if I can do that in that way.
So I think we'll get stuck into a kind of a spoiler-free overview of it. Obviously, Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City is a reboot of the Resident Evil franchise, written and directed by, is it Johannes Roberts? Is that how you pronounce his name?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean...
I just said yes then.
You did.
I don't know.
But he's a British film director, so I don't know if it's
Johannes
Robert. Yeah, or I don't know if it's...
Johannes Roberts.
Johannes, or I don't know if it's like South American when you say Johan. I never know.
Yeah,
I never know if to call her Scarlett.
I feel like I've heard someone refer to Johannes Roberts. 47 meters down. Yeah,
so we did 47 meters down.
I remember seeing that. That was a fairly good film. I haven't seen the sequel.
I saw the sequel and I preferred the sequel.
Okay.
He also did Strangers Pray at Night, which kind of got a lot of buzz from some of the kind of the thriller elements in there, but particularly one kind of swimming pool scene. And obviously, his latest project is Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City. He is a big Resident Evil fan, and I think you can see that by watching it. And it kind of merges. It's a loose it's a loose adaptation of the first and second games. In the popular franchise by Capcom. Quite interestingly,
I noticed a lot of the second one in there.
Yeah,
in certain ways, but the way some of the the visuals and in certain scenes that were almost recreated, and visuals that were recreated and things along those lines that are recreated in this game. It was interesting to see Paul W.S. Anderson. I noticed is still an executive producer on this film.
I noticed he slivered in some.
He did. He still managed to get his way in there. I guess he's. I don't know, maybe he'd managed to keep some rights with Sony to say that, I'm still be a part of these franchise. So he's still managing to make money off of the films.
As long as his wife doesn't show up, I'm all right, I mean, to talk about the cast first, because one of the cast was one of the things that when it initially got announced, a lot of people were kind of umming and ahhing about the cast. So we have Kaya Scodelario as Claire Redfield, fellow Brit, Effie, shout out,
and skins.
And she's kind of she's making a name for herself in these kind of lower budget kind of horror films. She did Crawl, she's done quite a few other stuff like that.
Crawl was very well received for her.
I liked Kaya as Claire Redfield. I thought she was good. I don't know what you thought.
I mean, I wouldn't say it's anything necessarily. I mean, she's always kind of had this kind of edgy girl, kind of darker, edgy kind of girl. It's always a bit like, as we said, Effie and Skins. If you know Skins, the British teen drama, she always was that kind of thing.
Yeah, she was.
She's a bit more likable than she was as that character back in the day, but yeah, no, she works for the character. I can't think in my head Claire Redfield enough to think of how much it is close to the game version of Claire Redfield.
I mean, they keep the motivation the same. So obviously Claire makes her debut in Resident Evil 2, and she's coming to Raccoon City to find her brother, who is in this film is played by Robbie Amell, which I thought was actually really solid casting, to be honest. I liked him in. I like Robbie Amell in a lot of the films I've seen him, and playing a bit more of a slender Chris Redfield that you get in the first game and Code Veronica, as opposed to the muscle-bound freak you see before you in Resident Evil 5, suited him a lot more.
He was what's the Babysitter?
He was in The Babysitter. He was really good.
The Babysitter he was very good in. And he's also on a Amazon. I know he's very well received. The Amazon show that he's on is also very well received, and I'm blanking on it. I will come.
That's all right. It'll come to you.
Whatever it is, it's about like you die and you're uploaded into basically a virtual world kind of thing.
Okay,
it's on there. It's meant to be really good. But Robbie Amell, I found him very bland in this.
Okay, fair enough.
I didn't find him I found other characters much more interesting than Chris Redfield in this film. I felt like he was just kind of there. He was like he very much, sadly for him, as I said, I've seen him in lots of other things where I think he's been a lot better and he's been more charismatic and more. Yeah. Whereas here, I feel like he's very much is the average. He almost is the video game. He almost is like the there's the character there. There's the average looking, like hunky looking guy who's like the hero kind of cop. But that pretty much feels as much as it goes. Whereas Claire gets backstory, Chris gets backstory, but
not
he's
quite
a sidekick to that backstory.
He's almost.
We don't really see him, and he's only kind of like he gets very quick character development points of he knows William Birkin, he's like a father to me, like that. That's pretty much the motivation that happens. I
think that's
he's one that disappointed me more because I do remember when this casting was announced, the only one that you were really into was Robbie Amell. You said Robbie Amell you liked, and then you were like, you didn't really know about the rest.
Well, I knew obviously Kaya Scodelario, because I watched Skins when I was a kid, you know. So I knew her. Hannah John Kamen as Jill Valentine. I was kind of unsure on, and the stuff I've seen Hannah John Kamen in, she's been good at, but I was kind of unsure because Jill Valentine's my favorite Resident Evil character, so I was kind of unsure about how it was going to do, but I think she did well.
She was good for what she didn't have a huge part to play in a way. It would be nice to see her fleshed out. I do think that but in her few scenes, she did stand out enough, to be like that. But she didn't get too much time on screen.
Unfortunately, is all I'd say. And then obviously Tom Hopper as Albert Wesker, who I thought was okay.
This is a case where I actually really enjoyed him at the beginning of the film.
Yes.
The more it went into it, his acting got worse. Yeah. His acting went from actually fairly kind of like a nice controlled level of kind of charismatic, kind of a little bit funny and charming. When we first meet him, he's like that. By the end of the film, and not giving anything away, just saying that he's erratic and crazy, and it becomes a little bit of a ham-fisted performance.
I agree with you on that. I think, and for me, as a big Resident Evil fan, I've played both Resident Evil 1 and 2 too many times.
Yeah. I do know the character is actually very hammy, though, to be fair.
The character is very hammy, but in a different way. And there's some things to do with
when he gets to say, like, Resident Evil 5, he's like...
he's like Neo.
It's the Matrix, and he's just...
Yeah, but, I mean, there's plot points that I'll talk about later where I wasn't huge on where it went. We have Avan Yogia as Leon S. Kennedy, who's obviously the rookie cop.
I know that a lot of people I've already seen, so based on the reviews I've seen, so reviews for this film are not solid.
No,
like critics' reviews are. I didn't expect them to be. They're not in general. They're not lovers of things, and I've said it before that quite often a lot of the reviewers that do some of these films. And I said this with Halloween Kills as well. Quite often, they're not fans of the franchises.
No,
so
they're not really.
It's not really. I get that they have to do a review, but it's not really. They're not doing it for the people. So I get that. The audience review, say on Rotten Tomatoes, is a lot stronger for this film.
Yeah.
But I know that there is a lot of people that don't like the direction they take Leon in the film.
I can get that because unfortunately, Leon is a fan favorite, and I don't have anything wrong with Avan's portrayal of Leon so much because he is a rookie cop, and there's one thing that I loved so in the original Resident Evil 2 on PS1, Leon Kennedy is due in for his first day as a cop the day the outbreak happens. However, he has a breakup before. And
I remember this backstory.
And he ends up getting battered and getting drunk and goes into the thing hungover. However, in all the other re-releases of Resident Evil, anything like that, because he became a fan favourite, they got rid of that side and they got rid of that story. They kept it in the animated films, but they got rid of it in this for some reason. And I liked that they kept that in it, to be honest. But yeah, again, I felt that he didn't really...
Wait, so do you mean that you liked that they...
I like they kept it in that he was... drunk
and broken up,
drunk and he was late and he was a bit sloppy because in the first.
But I do remember in the game that added backstory part, and I do remember actually liking that part. So it would have been nice to maybe have a little bit more of that kind of a little bit more of that. I know a lot of people don't like Leon. The Leon problem is that he is kind of a comic relief for the film. People don't like that he's been turned into a comic relief. Now, I would say as a general person who both I know some and know that. As someone, so I think I've got maybe more of a slightly I can distance myself from the franchise more to say. I'd say from an outsider though, I'd say Leon probably is the most easily likable character in the film.
Yeah,
for an outsider who doesn't know Resident Evil outside of Mila Djokovic fucking spandex, or whatever the fuck she was, I don't know. For that kind of thing, I think Leon's probably the most accessible character in this film. Yeah, and I feel like that's maybe what the intention was with him, to him to be the rookie outsider, kind of, he doesn't know what he's doing, like a bit more for the audience,
a bit more for the everyman. And we're kind of supposed to see the film through his eyes almost, you know.
Yeah, but I get for characters who feel that he's a little bit more established in the game and a bit more confident and not so much the bumbling at times bumbling idiot that he can be.
He can be.
You know, it's a different situation though with zombies.
Yeah, Donald Logue as Brian Irons, which also I said to you was awesome casting, and I felt he actually fucking knocked it out of the park.
Yeah, I mean, the first scene when he's introduced is a little bit shaky, I thought. It was a bit hammy in the first bit when he's introduced, when he's talking to all the staff. There's a scene where he's talking to all the staff in wherever they are.
In the Stars office.
In the RPD. Yeah. He's talking to them all, and like he kind of tells off Leon's character and like things like that, like jokes and things like that. Some of it just felt a little bit, but then there is a scene later when he goes on like a drive with Journey playing. Yeah, which is quite a cool scene where we follow it from his perspective and stuff. So it has like a bit of a he has some good and some bad, because I do like Donald Logue in general. I like him in other shows I've seen him in and films.
He's a solid character actor, you know.
He is a solid character actor.
He plays that kind of I knew that he'd be good for this role because I watched Gotham a couple of years ago. You know, and he's a police officer in that, and he's kind of a bit similar. There were some things with him because Brian Irons, Chief Irons, is supposed to be a corrupt dickhead, so he kind of played him well.
And that was the little bit with me. It's like which one are you trying to be? Are you trying to be comic relief because he kind of comes across a bit funny and a bit like, oh my god, what's happening to me? Oh my god, I'm kind of like a bumbling cop, but I'm the chief, but I don't know what I'm doing.
I know what you mean.
And you see what I mean? Like, it's like, are you trying to be correct? And that's why I know that like at certain points, you know, when he's kind of going in that journey scene, which if you've seen it, you'll know what we're talking about. It's kind of, me as the audience, I was like, why is he doing this? I don't get this right now. Yeah. He's gone from telling them what to do to suddenly he's going, and it's like, what? Why are we doing this?
Yes, you're a bit confused.
There's no link between it. There's no like links between that. So if you know the game, then you know why. And if you don't, you don't know why, and it's kind of a bit of a flaw to not include that for a general audience.
You did say that the general audience might struggle.
Which again would affect, you know, it will affect rewatch value of the film for people to go, I didn't really get it the first time. I don't want to watch it again. You know what I mean?
And then I'd say the last of the main characters, Neil Mcdonald. We couldn't figure if it was McDonough. As William Birkin, who fit. I think he fit the role.
In loads of things.
He's in loads of things. He fit the role, but for me, we see him in the first act, and he's kind of established as a villain in the first act, and then we don't see him kind of until the end of the film, really. And for me, that was
like a little bit in the middle with the family in the house kind of thing.
That was kind of at the start of the first act.
I guess it was,
because once we get
it did feel like that does make me think of the fact that it does feel like a very long stretch though to get to that point. When I looked at my watch, it was about an hour in before we were really getting to half of the stuff really good.
Okay,
like when I looked at my watch and I was like, they'd got to the mansion.
Yeah. Well, let's go from the start, because I think the opening act.
Do we want to do I think if we start in that part, we might be better to go to no spoilers.
Let's just give a little brief overview of what you liked, what you didn't like.
Yeah, I think we'll do that, and then we'll go into a little bit more of the film, because I think otherwise it's going to be hard to avoid no spoilers.
Yeah.
I think we're already teetering the line a little bit at times here. So as my kind of general, so there were lots of I could even recognize the iconic, like I especially noticed one from Resident Evil 2. I think because I remember watching you while I was living with you playing it, and so I remember seeing certain scenes like in the truck and the things like that. I think you even let out a little bit of
I did
when you saw that truck scene, because it was pretty much a quite close recreation of some of the shots of the scene. I like the fact that they've thought really carefully about the shots and the scenery, like some of the shots looking down from above and looking thing, or they even have some which I don't know if that's necessarily Resident Evil, but it's very like 70s horror, like the zoom in from a distance, like kind of slowly zooming in towards it. It reminded me, the quality was quite like as if they'd done it with a slightly lower camera, but to give it that kind of gritty look.
Like the first scene we see with Sheriff Irons, I think, was through the RPD window from away, and
that I quite like. There were lots of scenery shots, and there are lots of ways that they've done it in this film that do look really good. But then at the same time, there's a lot of like CGI'd fog, mist, things like that, or guns where you've got like smoke afterwards, which is I found very like at times I was like, yeah, that's obviously like just a CGI burst, but it didn't look quite as like strong as I kind of would have expected. But for the most part, the visuals were good. The atmospherics, the thing, they'd nailed the tone and the thing. My main problem actually overall the film is the performances are for the most part fine for this kind of film. In fact, some of them might have been like a bit stronger than you'd probably expect from this kind of film. You know, the actors are trying their hardest. The script sometimes I do think a little bit like is a bit like hammy.
Yeah, it was a bit hammy.
The acting is, but then if you're going with the game, it is. But it's kind of that like, are we saying the game? But are we really? Do we need to kind of update it maybe a little bit? Do we need to alter it a little bit so that it does feel a little bit more fresh? Because I did feel like a little bit like this is a game set in the 90s and this is a film that feels like it could have come from the 90s. It's like it feels a bit dated. The zombies don't do anything that's really that exciting. And as you know, and if you've seen the trailers, things like that, you know, certain things like the liquor monsters and any other monsters we get in this film.
Yeah.
It's like a moment and they're gone. It felt like that. Like a lot of moments where it felt like, oh, this could build to something really scary, and then it happens, and then it's like done. Over, done. Move on. Like it felt like a lot of the scenes. It felt like we could have cut quite some sections early on, and just got to it. We know why we're here to get to it, and I like building up the atmospherics. But there was plenty of atmospherics. I would have rather had another couple of minutes with certain monsters or certain scenes where they're really stuck in the middle of suspenseful things, but it felt like it was over too quickly. That was my kind of main gripe with it, is that I just felt like because they rushed to get to certain things, like, oh, we've got to fit so many little bits in that we're just basically doing like, it's like a highlight reels of the best parts instead of actually giving us time to enjoy what could have been the best parts. I think it would have been a far stronger film if they gave it that extra little time. And we'll go into that more in a second. How about you, bro?
So obviously I'm a huge fan of the games. I really liked the opening act. I thought it was really strong. Like you said, the visuals I think were great. It was very atmospheric. I did like that about it. The music and the kind of soundtrack of it was great. There was this kind of like operatic esque soundtrack with it, and for me that really kind of fit the tone of the film. There was the recreation of some of the iconic shots from the games was also kind of spot on for me, and I'd say I enjoyed I loved the first act, and I really enjoyed the second act, but I'm not sure what it was. But as you said, once we got to the kind of the third act, it seemed like they were like, okay, we've got 15-20 minutes to get through this. And like you said, there were some bits that for me could have lasted longer, or could have, and there were some bits that could have lasted longer or could have been done better. The set pieces, and I mean the actual set, as in the RPD and the Spencer Mansion, were great looking. They looked straight out of the game. Visuals,
exactly.
And some of the costumes were class, and there were some things for me like when they got a shotgun and she Claire was putting ammo into it. The box that they had was the same box from the game, and
things like when they opened up a file report of Umbrella, and it literally looks like the screen that you go onto when it's like this is like the backstory kind of thing. Like I liked those little touches.
It just kind of lost steam quite a bit when it got to the kind of the end of the second act and the reveal of the twist. Then, which we all knew coming if you're a fan, then it just seemed like it kind of had to rush through it. I mean, overall, I'd recommend fans to watch it, and I'd recommend watching it, but I think
it's definitely for the fans of the game.
Definitely,
which again, it's a really nice homage in that way. If you love the games, then I think you'd probably have plenty to enjoy here. It's just the fact that I don't think there's a balance that needs to happen when you make a film of a game, and this is like if with a few little moments, I think we could have had that nice balance where this could have been said to be one of the better video. There's not a great many very good video games, and I would put this higher because there's not a lot of competition. This is definitely still would be a high one for a video game adaptation because of how faithful it is. But I guess it also maybe might be the game that proves to us when everyone says they wanted to make a game and they want to make it exact, you should just basically make the thing that maybe that's not exactly what we need. There's something there, but maybe it's just because a video game we spend hours and hours playing it, and we can never expect that to be condensed down into an hour and
an hour and 47 minutes as this is.
And Johannes Roberts gives it his best try.
He does, and I actually think, whilst I got towards the end of the film, I was actually thinking that instead of merging 1 and 2, they should have just done 1.
Yeah,
and then I was like, because the second, you could merge the second and the third game because they take place around the same time. The third
is a bit shorter,
and the third's much shorter, so I was like that.
But I guess it would have been that's the thing. And I'd also say the first half of the game almost has a bit more of that the Resident Evil first game's kind of slower aesthetic kind of thing, and that first half of this film was actually the stronger part.
Definitely.
The build up with all the characters and the little moments where Raccoon City was starting to kind of fall apart is kind of the bit that I was, and it was that's why I'm saying once it started to get full into like zombie mode is when I started to feel like in my mind I was starting to go, I've seen this better. I've seen this done more interestingly. I've seen homages to Resident Evil where other films have done it but taken it in a slightly new direction. It was like, that still worked. In fact, like it was those little moments that kind of occasionally kind of lost me. But I think it's time to start talking a bit more in depth into some of these because it feels like we're skating around it for a while.
Yeah,
we're almost half an hour in, so let's get into some of it. I think we'll kind of pick through the main points that we want to discuss and the main scenes that we really loved recreating. And there are lots of great parts in this film that were like beautifully remade. So this is your spoiler warning that we are going into spoilers. So I'm going to count down from 3, 2, 1. Spoilers! Donald Logue hangs dog.
Donald Logue hangs dog. I was going to make the exact same joke. And what a dog it is, Well, I think from the opening act, I liked the part in the orphanage where we meet, Claire and Chris as they're young, and we see Lisa Trevor. I thought that was cool. I thought that was
I like the fact that they included it because obviously the Lisa Trevor thing I remember was it wasn't like that in the original. No. It was the remake that brought in more of a sad backstory, and I like.
She wasn't in the original.
So, was she not? No. I thought she was part of it, but she was
no. She was only
kind of remade with a backstory.
She was in the remake.
What the first?
The GameCube remake.
Oh, the GameCube remake. Yeah. Okay, I think that's why because I played a lot of them on the GameCube.
Yeah,
the Resident Evil game.
She was in the GameCube remake.
Okay, that's why I'm remembering it that way.
And she still had a kind of she had a horrific backstory, and
she was a bit more of just at the same time. Though it doesn't go. I don't remember it going in depth as much as it did in the newer remake, because she was a bit more of just she was a kind of someone to fight at one point.
Yeah, I mean, if you found the files, then it went into the backstory.
Yeah. Whereas the remake, the newer remake, actually goes into it a bit more, doesn't it?
No, so
I thought it did.
No, they had the PS1 original that obviously Resident Evil came out on, and then when they remade it on GameCube, they made Lisa Trevor, and she was the architect of. The Spencer Mansion was a guy called George Trevor. And they basically, once he built the mansion, they killed George and his wife, and then they took Lisa and they experimented on her. And then they basically created something which was kind of like prototype nemesis in her, basically, where she couldn't really be killed. And she was this enemy that would just pop up and you had to run away from her. And she was fucking terrifying. Yeah. And I think she looked quite faithful to what she looked like in the game in this film, and I really liked that. Yeah. I thought it
there is no fight in this film with
Lisa
Traver,
and for me that was one thing where it seemed as if this film set up quite a lot of cool things, but then it didn't have the time to explore it. I think once we get past the first half, then it's like there's all this stuff that could have been set up that doesn't really go anywhere. So we see Lisa Trevor at the start, and then we don't see her until the end.
No, but at the start, like in the tent and stuff, that was why.
That was really cool.
I was like, obviously straight away, I was like, okay, I'm fairly certain this is Claire Redfield. But at the same time, it was a little bit like, or is it kind of throwing us off here? Because is Lisa Trevor going to attack this girl kind of thing? Because you got a very strong vibe of whether it was. You couldn't tell whether it was good or bad, or whether she was about to be like attacked. And part of me kind of wished it'd been a bit more sinister, like sad but sinister, because I feel like that's what it was in the game. Like you almost felt bad for attacking Lisa Trevor, because she'd wail and she'd scream, and you felt kind of bad because you knew a sad backstory for her, but at the same time she's attacking you. Yeah, and I feel like we lost like a good monster here.
Yeah, definitely,
like, in a way.
What I did like though was that it definitely set the opening of the film definitely sets the tone that it is a lot more horror. So there isn't quite as much action as I expected, to be honest, but there is definitely a lot more emphasis on horror, and I think the opening act kind of set that up. And then I like that they use the title credits from the actual games. You know.
I liked that. Cool. I like the fact that also the very long title of "Welcome to Raccoon City"
was dropped.
was like it was on the sign, wasn't it? Behind
it was on the
Resident
sign.
Evil. It was on the sign. I like the way it was the nice classic red Resident Evil.
Yeah,
we get the very almost exact like the writing at the beginning telling us.
I was expecting the voice.
That. Yeah, and like and it goes through time frames as well. That we have. Each time when it's like midnight, things like that, and it's very similar old font. Like he's thought about the moments.
What I did like that we get the opening kind of. It's almost like a title card, isn't it? Saying, giving us an overview. But one of the things that I didn't like was the time jumps. It just felt very out of place. I felt like it would have been better suited. This is just something that kind of ran throughout the film, but it would be better suited if it had been in the at the bottom or in the corner, as opposed to kind of saying,
kept popping up.
Because it kind of disrupted.
I couldn't decide to be fair, when I was sat there, I couldn't decide whether I was like, do I like these like time reminding us of the different times I think, and I think. I also feel like if I was really like having another watch and analysing it, I feel like the urgency would not feel enough for the amount of time that was passing sometimes. I felt like obviously sometimes it was like 40 minutes had passed. Sometimes it was like an hour or two had passed. Yeah. And it was like, I was like, has enough happened in that time for that much time to pass? I don't know. But yeah, no, I get that. I can see how that's another one where it's like, maybe it's one step further than we needed to go as like our little homage to the game kind of thing. Maybe we didn't need it kind of thing. Yeah. Maybe we could have just focused on, I don't know how much time, but there's a lot of those time cards in there.
Because it's probably, I think it starts about 10 or 11 at night.
It's kind of linked to the urgency of the idea that we have to find out later 6. That you need to get out by 6 and, those kind of things.
Yeah. And I think... So we opened up with Claire and the trucker, which was one of the scenes that I loved because it opens up on the big burger. Yeah, when he's eating it and he's got his Doberman, and
it's is that Resident Evil 2 or is that?
Yeah, it's Resident Evil 2.
And I remember that scene too.
Yeah,
hitting the woman in the middle of the road and all that kind of.
And that was a cool scene, I thought. Yeah, because. One thing I liked that there was the constant rain coming. It all set a mood of something being kind of grim and not really right. And then when the zombie, the woman reanimates, or she was already dead or whatever, walked off into the woods, and I wasn't sure if she was watching her or not from the trees.
You could just see the silhouette, and you could almost see like the eyes or something
almost.
Kind of thing. Because we had that same that I mentioned before, that same kind of like panning in zoom kind of shot,
which was really
where
cool.
We were going into the darkness, and where it gets quite like they've obviously leaned into the fact that there's not a lot of lighting there, so they've tried to it does almost suddenly look quite really gritty, that kind of shot. Yeah, and then you go back to Claire and you kind of do the same thing where it goes towards the trees, then goes at a distance from Claire and then goes towards her, and then we kind of cut.
Yeah.
Although at the same time in my head, like, although I did say, like, I did like that opening, like, I did like in a way that kind of the way it set the tone with that opening scene with Lisa Travers. But the same way, I also think that truck scene would have actually been a really good opening to the film.
It would have been a cool opening as well.
You know, without the backstory kind of part of it. But yeah, like the backstory works within the story of the film, fine. But yeah, I did kind of like the fact, like, that's the kind of urgency where I was kind of like, oh, maybe it would have just been good to have Claire just straight into Claire arriving in town. We could have explained some of this other stuff later. It wouldn't have given us so much with Lisa Travers, though, to be fair.
And that's my thing is we see her in the opening, and then we see her in the scene with the liquor, and that's kind of it. And for me, that's one of the points where it could have been more. And for me,
it's kind of a sad that, like, you think about it and like, oh, well, it's destroyed now, so she's not there. So it's not like we're saving her for a bit more for later. It's like, oh, we've just kind of used her as kind of like, she's just that character. She's just that character that helps them survive, kind of thing. You know,
I didn't do wrong. I like the orphanage because it does play a a good role in the in the franchise and in the games. But it was one of the things where I think Lisa Trevor could have been included more, and whilst being a sad kind of a sympathetic character, I think she would have worked better as leaning into the monster and leaning into this.
Well, I think because she could have been a really good one, because you don't quite often get the ones that are both, it could have been played up really nice as both sympathetic but also sinister. Like, you don't quite get them. It could have added to quite a really nice layered villain, a monster in this story kind of thing, where, to be honest, we don't really get any, like, we get a lot of different creatures and monsters, but it never feels like we get a standout. Like, Lisa's, she's not the monster, but she's the closest to one that actually gets some development.
Yeah.
None of the rest of them really get any major development.
Not really.
This is the problem.
Unfortunate. Yeah.
It's unfortunate that a game about zombies and monsters, and obviously the characters were always at the forefront because you're following them and it's what happens around them. But then we did normally get some kind of good, like, laid out kind of monster boss, something like that. And I don't feel like that's in this film.
No, or me. And that's the problem, is Birkin is such an iconic character in the Resident Evil series. And the whole, the monster. And don't get me wrong, I thought that he didn't look half as bad as the CGI in the trailer made him look out to be. The only problem for me was, and I know we're jumping way ahead. We're jumping way ahead, but there's a scene where obviously we see Birkin at the start. There's a couple of flashbacks with Birkin, and then we see Birkin leaving the town. We don't see him until the third act, and then he ends up injecting himself with the G virus, turning, and then he mentions, he has a he's chasing Chris, and he says, you were like, you never be like a son to me, or something like that. And it's really unfortunate, because for me, I was thinking, is that did they have more scenes together that we just haven't seen? Because they don't have a scene together in it. You see a picture.
We just hear them talking about a really bad picture, by the way.
Yeah, it is really
badly
bad.
Photoshopped. Yeah. Like, it's like Neil McDonald. I think it's Donahue. I'm fairly certain I've heard Neil McDonahue, and I'm fairly certain I've seen it of him. Like, it's like, looks like it's a shot of him at, like, maybe like a premiere of a film, and then it's like Robbie Animal in, like, more of like a kind of a different kind of completely different kind of
film. And it felt as if
I hate it when films do that.
I know,
like, really, like, it's like one thing, like, surely you can get someone good at fucking Photoshop.
And I think,
or just take a fucking picture together.
Yeah, I think for me, what they should have done is they should have either stuck more to the original of having the Tyrant as the main bad guy, and then if they were going to make a sequel, have Birkin in it, have him more fleshed out.
Because that's the thing, I thought early on in the film, I thought Birkin would just play more into later down the line kind of thing. I didn't think he'd be straight. I know, like, I know that's what it is in, like, Resident Evil 2 and things like that, but it's still, like, it just felt like, it would have been better to kind of pepper him along as this person in the story. So I wasn't sure until we saw him, obviously, that a little bit, but it's still in the first half of the film. But until we saw him with the family, at one point I thought, we're only going to mainly see him in flashbacks then. And he's not actually going to be a main character. And then he is, and then he's gone for ages, and then suddenly it's when they need him in below the Spencer Mountain inside.
Yeah.
It's those kind of bits with him where this is me. This is one part. I remember what he looks like with that kind of almost he has the eye and he has the black. It looks more like kind of a black sludge. I remember coming off of a kind of tentacles. Or something. I don't know. It's like a black.
It's just like a massive claw.
Yeah.
Thing.
But I thought Birkin was a little bit more. I thought it was an accidental gene in the game. I thought he was a bit more of a sympathetic character in a way. It's quite with his family and stuff, and his daughter and stuff. I thought they, at least in the game, build a little bit more of a. You'd feel a little bit sorry for the fact that that he's transforming and changing. But...
Well, the idea is in the game. So obviously there's the T virus, but Birkin and Wesker were both researchers together, and they made they worked on the T virus and making bioweapons and stuff like that.
Yeah,
and then Birkin kind of made his own G virus, and then when Umbrella went tits up and when it kind of went, he was going to go and keep the G virus for himself, but then a SWAT team gets sent in to retrieve the G virus basically, and they gun him down. And then that's when he injects himself with it. So they kind of kept that in there a little bit, but that was for me was one of the problems. So we'll get to that later.
Yeah, we'll come back to where that goes, and we'll jump back a little bit because we were with Claire. We were as we do. We can only pick at certain parts. We can't.
Yeah,
pick
we're
every
going to go
single part apart, but certain character interactions. Again, Claire and to kind of move forward a little bit. Yeah. Claire and Chris, we get a whole scene where they're where she's broken into his house, and that's one of those scenes. That's one of the things that made with Robbie Allen where I was saying he just doesn't really he doesn't seem to get any character development really. Yeah. He gets moments, he gets quick whereas Claire gets a fair amount, and Leon I'd say it also gets, even though Leon might say it's quicker moments, we establish his character a bit more. We even get a scene with, say, Albert and Jill at the bar, at the rest of the cafe or whatever diner.
Yeah.
Where you're getting some time to talk. Where it feels like Chris says very little in this.
It does, and that's the problem. Yeah, that's a shame.
It's hard to like him because it's I don't. You could try if you like the games. You can just try. I'm just going to impose what I know about
and
you
that's
onto
what
him.
You kind of do. I feel, or at least I feel like I did, which is why I like it.
I guess in a film, but you can't do that
because he doesn't get as much.
Because they skew other people. It feels like if there was a sequel, you'd then be if you learned more about him and it's not close to it, you'd be that completely fucks up my view.
Yeah, I mean, because obviously, in the diner where we get introduced to a lot of the kind of the characters, we see Jill and Wesker, and we get a bit of kind of stuff with them, and we get I think it was.
I don't know if the other guy was an advocate. I can't
remember.
No,
he's one
is
of them.
He he
is. And one of the police officers was a character as well, but they kind of changed
Doyle and someone else, I think.
And so I think it was Kevin Dooley, and then Enrico Marini, who is actually from the games. He's the lead of the Bravo team.
I mean, I'm not surprised now. As we said, it is trying to be very authentic. It has tried to change some things, obviously, to work in that way. But it is very authentic to the characters and stuff that were in the games and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think it does include a lot.
I'm not surprised that majority of it is made up of stuff that all is within the game kind of universe. So that's good. And this scene in the diner, again, these early scenes with Claire and the truck and things like that, and them in the diner and stuff like that, I liked all these. Were quite nice, refreshing scenes to have. You've got Leon who's asleep at the bar and they're messing around with him and potato shooting, but straight away you kind of get the idea of what Jill's like, because instead of going for talking about shooting, she's literally willing to shoot it with her gun in the middle of a diner off the top. So you get the idea that she's a little bit feisty, so you can kind of get what character she is. And this is the scene when when Albert Wesker, Tom Hopper, it's Hopper Hooper. I kept going back and forth.
We said Hooper.
Tom Hooper's the director.
Yeah,
but anyway, with Jill in like between them, that scene is the scene when he's the best. Like, he comes across really well. Like, actually, I quite like this kind of version of him. Because I know in other iteration, I just do mainly remember him as a really cheesy character
because he becomes
if you've seen the other Resident Evil films, I believe he's extremely fucking cheesy.
And that's basically what
films
he is.
Are cheesy, but
global saturation. That's basically what he is.
But so I was like, I quite like the fact that he seems a little bit more like charismatic, kind of, full of himself maybe a little bit, but he's not a cheese ball. He is like more of a grounded character in a little bit way. So I liked that.
I really liked the scene when they were all in the Stars office. I really liked that because I don't know, it showed that it was just a bit playful and
I liked all I did like all the interactions between it. It was only when Donald Logue walked in that I don't know that like the tone changed a little bit, and I felt I don't know if it's just Donald. I expect him to be maybe a little bit more serious, and he was a bit less than that. It was just threw me off a little.
I really liked
the way he was like with them and like talking to them in like different way. The way he talks to Leon, like he needs to get back to his desk. And
I like
jokes about
to be honest. I quite liked it. And then I think obviously then kind of shit starts hitting the fan when Claire is at Chris's. And that's where we see like the sick neighbours.
The little boy.
And I thought that
added a bit of prosthetics. It's basically it looks like little Jason Bourne.
Yeah, it kind of does. Looks like Tommy when Corey Feldman does it.
Yeah, when he cuts all of his hair and stuff. Yeah,
and I like the itchy tasty because that's a nice bit from the games. And I like that scene as a kind of
smashing through the windows that it like kind of goes to, and the way they like hold them down, the screeching and screaming. And I also like the. We get it in the diner as well with the waitress.
From the eye,
we get it here as well. The blood coming down the eyes and stuff is a nice little kind of touch. And this is when I like. I liked the zombies when they were more like the human looking, but some of them, as we go later into the film, get more of a blue, almost a little bit Day of the Dead kind of.
I preferred that.
I preferred the ones that were too fake. I
preferred
quite like weirdly bloated, which I guess is the idea to be a bit bloated. Maybe.
Yeah, I preferred when they'd changed and they clearly died, because
it was only because a lot of they looked different. There wasn't like there was I didn't see a consistency between the zombies. Some of them look cool, some of them in like lab coats and stuff we get later on. That one kind of looked more white and pale and veiny.
Yeah,
I liked that, but it was the ones that looked kind of really like bluish that we started to get.
There were a few
kind of like it kind of just looked like a mask over the top of their faces.
Yeah,
kind of thing. So it was just a bit of a mixed bag, but I liked this scene with the itchy tasty.
Yeah, I liked the trucker. When he gets bit by the dog, and then the truck crash, and then he's on fire when he comes in. I like that.
And we get quite a few 90s songs.
Yeah,
that one, which I didn't mind the inclusion of those. It made you feel like kind of with that time kind of thing. There was a bit where in that scene where Leon's listening to the music. There's a bit when the music starts to like rise. The song I was singing a minute ago. I can't remember what the song is. How quickly my brain goes to mush. But it kind of rises up the music, and that's when I expected. You saw the truck just before, and then you see the music rise up. I expected again to kind of get to the point to kind of then suddenly like he sat there on the thing, and then the truck either bursts through the door or outside and explodes. But instead, like we go from that, the music builds and then just stops, and we cut back to the truck, and the truck's still driving. Then we go back to Leon, and he's still sat in the thing. Yeah. Then finally we go back to the truck again. Then the truck finally flips over, and it kind of felt like I would have preferred I liked the scene. I liked the thing. I liked him walking out on flames. Yeah. That was cool. But it's one of those other things that I clocked in my mind as a bit more urgency thing. Was like, I feel like it would have been cooler to just have suddenly he listens to music, it builds, and then then you just see outside maybe a shot of like behind him, and outside the door you see this truck just go explode. Yeah. And Leon's still kind of
asleep.
Kind of just off it, not even paying attention. And like those kind of like instead of spending, I think, almost another minute of like back forth, like we don't need it. Let's get to it.
And that's for me was when one of the weaker parts of the film for me was the editing. because it would get to a point where it was starting to build tension. And for me, there were quite a few moments in it when I did think that it was quite atmospheric and quite tense.
There are some very good scenes,
but then it would cut away from them just as it was building to something kind of unrelated, or like I said, there would be something would happen, and then we would get just a card that said 4 a.m. and then we would be on to the next scene. And for me, that felt, it kind of disjointed the film a little bit.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing with the thing I guess that I really always wanted with the Resident Evil film, and which it's like we start to get it here and then we never get the full purpose. I feel like the Resident Evil game, especially thinking of the first Resident Evil 2, you need a nice breathing time with it. You need the suspense. You need to feel like it's almost you need almost a 5-minute sequence of just them going through Spencer Mansion, just following a character through Spencer and feeling like what the fuck is around that corner.
When we got that in parts, because I think when the Bravo team go out to the Spencer Mansion, and when we go to the forest, that was quite. I really like that.
The shots are really beautiful. The shots were the burning police car and all of those shots. Yeah, again, those were I was like, oh, you see, these are really nice.
And I won't lie that when they got into the Spencer Mansion, seeing the Spencer Mansion, I got pretty excited. And I was like, fuck, mainly because
it's been recreated
beautifully, and it looks a little bit small, but that just the foyer. But then
it did look a bit I was looking at it at first going, oh,
it's a bit tight.
It looks bigger than on the outside.
Yeah, but actually going in and seeing it and being able to see it in a film was really cool. And I genuinely think 10-year-old me would think that this is the best film ever, because the bit in me which grew up playing Resident Evil and seeing all of this stuff. And if you listened to the first episode when I talk about a scene that's in this film, is when we first get into the Spencer Mansion and we kind of have this haunting view around it. When I would be so terrified playing this game when I was young, I would go under my covers.
Yeah.
And when I looked out, I would see the Spencer Mansion at night, because my imagination was going wild.
Yeah.
So to be able to see on the cinema was awesome. And when we got to the Spencer Mansion and it was, it was dark and it was gloomy and they were looking around and they were trying to investigate it, it was really creepy. And it kind of, that's when I thought the film was tonally at its best, when we were in there, when it was dark.
When we first started, when we're first moving through and we felt there's bits where we've got Jill on one side, Albert on one side, and they're going through the dark room. You can see them going off into different parts. That's what I mean. It's almost like they nicely build the suspense and the atmospherics until the creatures come in, and then it felt rushed. Kind of thing. It's that kind of it's the a bit that comes after this when we've got Chris Redfield in the middle of the dark and he's blasting his gun.
Yeah,
and there's he's surrounded by different zombies and he's blasting, and we're kind of in the dark. And I even heard someone in the toilets after the cinema talking about that exact scene where they were literally saying oh, the Spencer Mansion looked great. Until we couldn't see it and it was pitch black and we were
exactly.
flash, and then suddenly it's all the atmosphere, it's all of that vision was gone. And that scene with Chris, is really it was one of those where it's that's oh, okay, this could be really cool because you're shooting your way through, and if we had some time to suddenly stop and oh, they're gone. Let's kind of give it a few moments here,
and then
build it back, turn around, and build it back. But it doesn't. It just blast. I'm done.
Well, that's the thing. So we get as the Stars team go in, and they start exploring the Spencer Mansion. We get the iconic scene. We get the thing that terrified me forever and still is one of the best horror scenes ever. We see the bold zombie eating the body, and then we see it slowly turn around. Yeah. And seeing it, I was thinking, "Fuck, this is creepy." And when they started shooting that was a really cool scene. And then the zombie not died, but you know what I mean. Stopped being a zombie temporarily, because I don't know what they don't die, do they? They just stay down.
They stopped for a moment.
That was awesome. And then he starts, Redfield starts giving aid to him, and then we get Richard Aiken, who I do love. So Jill asks Richard in the STARS office, which would be the worst way to die? Being swallowed by a giant, being swallowed by a snake, or eaten alive by a great white. And in the remake of the Resident Evil 1 game, that's how Richard can die. If you play as Jill, he gets eaten by the snake. And if you play as Chris, he gets eaten by the shark. And I love that. And when we get the scene where Richard goes upstairs and we follow him yet again in the Spencer mansion. He's got his torch on, but it's very dimly lit.
Yeah.
And we can clearly see what's behind him. That gets really cool. And then a zombie walks behind him, and I was genuinely like, fuck, this is creepy.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, this is badass. I was gonna be like, how can people not like this film? It's fucking sick.
Yeah. And
he, we see Forrest start shooting, and then we get an action scene where suddenly there's loads of zombies, and it's really cool. And we get, they're shooting them and they're trying to run away, and they're just surviving. They're getting grabbed, but they're pushing them off. And then Richard gets pushed against the wall and he gets eaten. And we see these really cool action scenes with Chris Redfield. And I was like, okay, this is got to be fucking sick. And I was like, yeah, this is fucking class. And I think for me, that was a highlight of the film. And then, like you said, when we get a scene with where Brad is in the helicopter, which was another cool scene, when he's playing Snake in the hand and the zombie gets him. Yeah.
Again, it was just like a hand, like really cool, like slow suspense of hand, then a quick.
Yeah.
But that was the same thing with like Richard dying. It was like you're surrounded and stuff like that. I felt like there was like I felt like the build up to it was good. The payoff was him surrounded by a bunch of zombies.
Yeah, it could have been a bit more gory. But
I would have liked to have a bit more gore, but I also would have liked that it just was like, yeah, that's what I mean. But I also would have liked that there was a little bit more to it than him just kind of basically, he just kind of fell back against them. You know what I mean? It was those little things. Like I did like those scenes, and there aren't actually that many, like you said, action scenes in there.
But that one scene, sorry, my Cowie's going mental. But that scene where shit hits the fan and we see all the zombies, and it's almost like a kind of the action part of Act 2. That was really strong, and I loved it. Honestly, I was like, "Fuck, this is like class." And I was thinking, 10-year-old me,
I just would have liked longer sequences of these.
Exactly.
I would have liked longer scenes of them going around through hallways, going around corners, because I feel like that in my mind, like although there's loads of, like you said, like loads of iconic scenes in thing, the bit I always remember the most is, and this is all the way back to the original like PlayStation 1 kind of Resident Evil, when I'd be like slowly with my torch going round corners, click, clack, click, clack, click, clack. You know what I mean? That little knocking, that little clacking noise, which added its own atmosphere. And then it's like not knowing what was about to pop round.
Walking into a room and listening for them.
We get some nice scenes of them like walking. I just would have liked it to just go on longer before we then just get a barrage of just loads of zombies and the action, which is fine as it is, but it's just I wanted more.
Yeah, but my problem was that we then go to Jill and Wesker. Wesker plays Moonlight Sonata, and the secret passage opens.
Yeah.
And then the helicopter that Brad was in comes in. And then for me,
I liked that part as well.
I liked that part. It was
the
cool.
Visuals of the helicopter was cool.
And it looked cool. But then that's what I mean. And what you said about 5-10 minutes ago is we cut back to Chris. And it's another one of these action scenes where there's zombies all around him.
Yeah.
And what I liked about it was when zombie films do this well and they capture how frantic the situation would be, you have to actually think, if you're in that situation, it's very frantic. They're all around you, and it's tight corners and that kind of stuff. It captured that really well. And then we get to the scene, the fucking hell, Carrie's going mental with this bag. We get to the second, she loves playing with a bag recently. We get to a second action scene where Chris Redfield is yet again surrounded by zombies, and I'm thinking, okay, fuck, round 2, this is going to be really cool.
Yeah.
And then all the lights just cut out for some reason, and then we get the flashes of him just shooting him in the head, and it kind of, like I said, it had
I guess they cut out because of the explosion.
Yeah, but it could have been like still.
It could have been a really cool scene, especially if just give him a torch in that scene.
Yeah,
it's a really cool scene. But instead, we just got flashes from the gun
because it could have been reminiscent. Oh, sorry to cut off, Monkey. It could have been reminiscent of the really cool action scene in Army of the Dead, where she's moving through them.
Oh yeah,
and then she gets thrown off and she has to fight them all in the dark.
Yeah,
we could have had that, but it kind of is just.
But it also just could have been a really cool suspense in the dark kind of. I don't know what's there.
And when he got the lighter out, I thought that scene was. When he got the lighter out.
Yeah,
and he was kind of like looking around. That was.
I just think that's, but it did logically as well. It just didn't feel like it was like light on, like because it was Dooley, wasn't it? It was Dooley that was there. It was like light up. He's off. Dooley's a little bit closer when he gets there. Then Dooley's gone.
Yeah,
and then, but it just was like, why is the zombie why would the zombie do that? He's right next to you. He'd just get you. Sure, he's not good. He's not messing about with you. He just wants your fucking guts.
He wants their brains.
Like he's like that. Yeah, it was that stuff. Where it was like, really, like, why are we doing this cliched?
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Give him a torch, give him a thing, and it would be far more suspenseful. Not a broken torch, even. Yeah, just a torch in light, dark.
And I don't mind.
What made the original work.
And I don't mind cliches when they land. And it would have been, even if we had what would have been what we would have expected, light, turn the light on, he sees Dooley as a zombie, turn the light, turn the torch, lighter goes out, he turns it on, he's a bit closer, and then when he turns on, we have a jump scare of him being right there.
Yeah.
I would have preferred that because yes, it's more cliche, but it makes sense for a zombie to do that,
Yeah. And I think it's a good point where there is one thing that was a major bugbear and a major cliche for me that's not played out once. It's played like 4 times in this film. And it's the I'm about to die and I get saved by someone.
Okay.
And it happens like 4 times in this film.
I'm trying to think of when it happens.
So
it happens
when Chief Irons is in the garage.
Yeah, with the dog.
Which that's one of the better atmospheric ones.
Yeah, that was
he's
cool.
Quite scary. Because the dog's quite scary. The CGI on the dog doesn't completely work. He does look a bit quite fake. I thought.
I think which is strange because in the
they were quite good in the first one from 2002. They were quite good.
Yeah, they just used dogs with prosthetics on. I think.
Whereas this one, they'd CGI'd for it. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's just what I mean, like that. And then that's when Claire comes in and saves him.
Yeah.
Which I'm not saying I wanted to see him get ripped apart. It just feels like a bit of a okay, that's how I would I feel like they could have come up with something more interesting than that. But then we also get Albert Wesker towards the end where he's going to shoot and then it gets saved by someone else with the gun, saving someone again.
Yeah.
We also get I know
when Chris is being held by Birkin and Claire
shoots him and Leon gets saved.
Leon gets saved
when they're down in the basement of the
RPG.
Claire walks in and saves him then. 4 times. I think there might even be another one.
When Jill Valentine saves Chris Redfield shortly after the scene where, with the lighter after that scene.
I know that this is a franchise and no, we're not going to kill Chris Redfield and we're not going to kill off Leah in this first film. But at the same time, it was a little bit where I was just like, let's come up with something a bit more inventive. We just put it 5 times. There's a lot of times in one film to use the same plot device.
Yeah,
so I mean, that's a bit of a major overuse of, and again, I don't believe it's something that pops up all the time in the games. It's like, I've just popped in to save you kind of thing. Most of the time they have to quickly work a way out kind of thing.
Yeah.
So let's have a bit more of that ingenuity that's in the games kind of thing instead of, hey, I'm here to hit you with this. I'm here to smack you out. I grabbed you, pulled you out of the way kind of thing. It was just, that was just one thing that played on my mind. By the time it got to the end, it was suddenly dawned on me when it happened, when Jill Valentine saves the girl. It was like, how many times has this happened now? Because I feel like I've seen this scene playing out. But now 5 times. I didn't even clock 5. So that's that's a lot. It's a lot for that kind of scene. But it did also get us to talk about the doggo scene.
But kind of going back to where we were in the story. When Wesker plays Moonlight Sonata and the passageway opens, for me that was. I love the character of Albert Wesker in the series, and the idea and the reason why Wesker's betrayal is so good in the game, particularly the first game, is, I mean, for those who either don't know or aren't fully aware or whatever, I mean, I don't know, but the idea is that the STARS team are the Special Tactics and Rescue Service or Squad for Raccoon, the RPD, and it's a team that was put together by Wesker, and it was hand selected by Wesker. So you get, Chris Redfield was hand selected, Jill Valentine was hand selected, and these people are supposed to kind of be Wesker's friends, but
so the betrayal is a lot bigger because,
but it's not only that,
to be
but
leader in a way.
Well, not only that, but the idea is that Wesker, before even STARS, Wesker worked for Umbrella, and he set up STARS next to in Raccoon City, because that's where Umbrella was based. And in the event of kind of a breakout, or in the event of something like this, the idea was that Wesker would use STARS against the creations that they've made, against the bioweapons, to get combat data so that he could then sell it on. So Wesker's kind of betrayal is this whole thing that he's set up and he's groomed these people for is for this exact reason and for his thing. You are supposed to either go in there and die. And all of the actions, all of the people who have died in STARS, Bravo team, and this one are a result of Wesker.
Yeah,
and
that's a lot better.
It's a lot better than Wesker does it for money.
I don't
by a shadowy
I gotta be
organization.
honest, when he was explaining, I didn't know whether to know. Are you a bad guy now, or are you not a bad guy now? I don't know. I was literally there like that. And I think, I think any standard audience member would be like,
would be a what?
Are we going to like him now or not like him? I don't know. When he walked down that passage, I didn't know. Like, she was saying he'd betrayed him, and I was like,
but that's the thing.
I feel like you have really betrayed you,
because he said, I'm collecting whatever to expose Umbrella.
Yeah.
And so you're like, so you're collecting stuff for an organization that want to expose Umbrella. So that's you're a good guy.
Yeah, that's what I mean. This is what I mean. I'm happy when a film doesn't try to spoon feed things to you, but there is a little bit of a difference between spoon feeding you and then basically providing no information on what you should. Like the fact that some people were sick and some people weren't, which they tried to kind of put off in like a scene where they say like, oh, they've been giving you, like they would have given it because you're like the higher ups, whereas they were just the lowest in the community, and that's all that's ever really mentioned about it in there. Which again just felt like so I really still don't. I can't say I really know. So who the hell it does or doesn't have it? There's no real clear idea of why the virus affects them,
and that's why I think if they'd have stuck with the original twist of, because once Wesker's pager went and it was like, it's time, it'll be in your locker, I was like, okay, so this is where we find out he's working for Umbrella.
Yeah.
But he wasn't. And I think if they'd have had the original twist of he's actually an Umbrella agent, it's about getting STARS in there for combat data, all of that kind of stuff, then he could have said, like, why do you think you guys are sick? Because it could have been like, well, actually, we make these people immune, or we give them some kind of vaccine to it because they've got another use.
Give it a purpose
for the combat data.
Because they kind of tiptoe around at little points where they say, "Oh, why isn't these people sick? Or why aren't Claire's in the house? Like, Chris, why aren't you sick?" Kind of thing with the bottle, and we have all that, but it's never really fully clearly explained.
No,
and linking it into Albert Wesker and all that would have just made it like, and making him more of a defined villain instead of going, oh, we kind of liked him at the start, so you don't want to fully hear him. It's like, well, no, if he's going to betray them, then betray them.
Betray them.
I know, again, that would be...
Shoot a motherfucker.
One of their team being the thing. Yes, that's a total cliche. I'd rather you stuck to the cliche and go for it properly instead
of full on
half. And this is in fact that pretty much defines the film in a lot of ways. It's like I would rather you just went full for it instead of trying to half do bits of it.
Yeah, and for me
that plays out throughout. And Albert Wesker, and this is also the point when Tom Hopper's performance goes from like
a bit dumb,
fairly fairly confident, cocky, kind of like works well, charismatic, to just like the plot twist now. It could, to be fair to Tom Hopper, it could literally be because in the script it was like, who the fuck am I meant to be playing now?
Yeah.
Am I playing a bad guy, I think? Because he suddenly goes cheesy bad guy a bit more. So it's like he's played the game and been like, I'm going to lean. I guess I'm leaning more into the bad guy. And then at the same time, he still seems to be at times seeming quite nice. So it's like he flips between the two characters that he should be, and he doesn't know who it is. And then I feel like as we're talking so much about Albert Wesker, we can jump to that little credit scene because we're kind of talking about that. Like,
yeah, well, that's
really poor. I thought that was really poorly done.
Yeah, the only thing
screaming and thing was like
the thing that I did like, and this is yet again because it's a shot from the game, and it's a shot from the loading screen of the game when you first boot it up, is when the body bag sits up.
Oh yeah,
that was cool.
That looks cool.
That was cool. And then it was
the
just
second
like
he got out of the bag when he was just rivering around. We had like almost a minute of him rivering around, naked, screaming and doing that. And it didn't sound genuine screams or anything. It didn't sound like. And I couldn't tell if he was in pain or in pleasure. I didn't know what was happening right now.
It's getting a bit Hellraiser.
And then I guess
Ada Wong.
I don't know how much good Ada Wong. We got Ada Wong is in there as the tease. You thought it would be Nemesis.
I thought it was going to be Nemesis,
but no.
But I mean,
it's a plot point to another villain, like a villainy that comes down the line, kind of thing, if they get there.
And honestly, until that point, I think that's when, for me, the film started to lose steam. And I don't want to. I know it sounds like we're shitting on the film, but I think that the setup was awesome. I thought, okay, we're going a bit slower than in the first Resident Evil film, which we're going to cover on our next episode. So like and subscribe.
It's just as much. This one's just as much that it's just as much that as the original, like the original 2002 one has moments, but for the most part isn't. Like this one is, but for some parts doesn't quite pull it off in that way. Like at least. The only thing I can say against for the original is, like you said before, like 10-year-old you with this film would fucking think that this is the best film ever.
Yeah.
But then 10-year-old us probably thought the original 2002 at 10 years old was probably the best fucking film.
To be fair.
One of the best things ever. So I feel like we're still very much in that category where you're like teenagers will fucking love this film. And the older you get, the more mature you are. Maybe you'll start to be... I enjoy parts of it. I enjoy moments. If you love the games, I think you'll still love moments.
I think it's the other way. I think if you're a kid, you'll love this film. If you're a teenager, you'll be like, oh shit, it doesn't stick to it at all.
Yeah.
Why is Jill not white? All that kind of stuff. And then when it gets to
that's one thing that we just didn't say it, but like that, I don't see the fucking point in that one. Like they don't have to look exactly like the game to inspire. And
I said this to you. I said that when we get to the next film, when we get to the other films in the Resident Evil franchise, the Paul T.S. Anderson ones, Paul W.S. Anderson, whatever, he basically just hired people who were like the guy who plays Leon in it was just like, yes, you look like Leon. Yeah. You're now him, and it's like, but then he acts nothing like him, and he's in it for like 2 minutes, and it gets too much like, oh, this looks like it. Whereas in this, like, at least we get some decent actors playing competent versions of.
Oh yeah. I'm not oldest brother. I think that this is a stronger film than all of the. Although I have a soft spot for the original one, we'll talk about next week.
Yeah, I've got a soft spot for. I've got a soft spot,
and there is the Apocalypse, and mainly because I fucking love seeing Nemesis in any form of live action.
Yeah,
it's a badass, even though I called him Apocalypse. Because I mix up the title of the name with the character, and because he's a little bit like Apocalypse from X-Men and things like that. So, but it was those kind of parts. But no, I'm not saying it anyway. Like if you're thinking these are very different films,
they are
complete. One's a sci-fi. whatever, action-based film. This one's an atmospheric, more suspenseful, not nearly actually that action-packed kind of film.
That's what I mean.
So some people just wouldn't like it just because of that. So if you want to see some ass-kicking action over the top, then this ain't your film.
No,
this is not your Resident Evil. Watch it. Go and whack off to the other one.
Yeah, and I genuinely thought that up until that point, the film had been really strong and really good. It was just the third act, and I don't know what it is, but recently, films just haven't been nailing the third act. Like Ghostbusters' third act just seemed like it was done in like 10 minutes. And Halloween Kills, the third act just felt like it was done in 10, 15 minutes. And a lot of the films,
Yeah, and just abrupt endings.
Yeah.
What is with Hollywood and not giving us those 5 minutes of extra, just a little epilogue.
Yeah,
a little 5 minutes or something. You've made us watch something for 2 hours. Just give us an extra 5 minutes just
to know what they're doing. Yeah.
We want to know what happens. We don't just want it to just go.
And for me, that's
happens in this one too.
Yeah, but that's it. We kind of get to this scene, and then so Wesker, starts going down the hidden passage, and then Jill goes to save Chris, and then she's like, Wesker betrayed us, and I was like, I mean, he didn't really. You could have gone with him. And he,
I mean, this all does really happen.
The scene with the liquor. Now, I was looking forward to this scene because liquors are OG, and the build up to it when they get into the orphanage, and the orphanage was another building that looked very faithful.
That's what I was thinking. I was literally thinking the same scene at that point, going, "Oh, we've kind of missed that point."
And I thought it was quite cool. We return to the orphanage, and then we get.
Is the orphanage something in the game? Because it looked very cartoonish, the front, so I was just assuming that is like a...
Yeah, it's in the game. It's a lot more in
colourful and weirdly, in animated kind of set.
It looks quite similar in the game. It's a lot more in the remake. In the original, the orphanage is mentioned, and it has the same, the same thing as this is where they basically get test subjects from. So I like that they included that. And I liked when we got the build up for the liquor, when Leon goes ahead, and
we see that
the lights
really cool. Yeah,
that was really cool.
Liked it.
The lights start moving, and at first I thought one was just swinging, and then as the lights, because you can't see it, and I thought it built the suspense quite well, and
moving along like something's moving, like a really kind of Jaws, this kind of something's moving, but you can't see it.
And then he looked at Lisa Trevor, who was just chilling in the orphanage, and she told him to shush, and I was like,
distracted by that. I think we hear a little scuttling noise above the back of him as well, I'll see something move behind him, kind of thing. And
then it kills Chief Irons, which is quite cool.
I mean,
I wanted to see more.
It's disappointing we don't we kind of see him get taken up quickly. But then it was the way it was shot. I didn't think it. The suspense wasn't there as much.
Not that quite as much as it could have
been. Really cool light part was really cool, but then it was almost the way they were stood. You were like, well, he's about to go there. He's going, isn't he? You kind of assumed it.
Yeah, and I like when his head dropped down. That was cool.
Yeah, his face looking all clawed and things like that. Yeah, I expected more that he would have chomped more of his head.
I thought his half of his body would have fallen down.
Yeah, I thought it was just going to be part. Instead, it was still. So we are sticking to very much that kind of 15. We're not going full on gore here.
No,
there's no blood splurting or any really properly, is there?
No, not loads of gore. I mean, the gore in it's for the most part is well done, but it's not a massive level of gore. Unfortunately,
there's some body horror and stuff like that, but not major gore. But this is what I mean. So the liquor, and then obviously we get them and trying to shoot at him, and Claire's trying to shoot.
And the liquor is such an iconic, it's such an iconic enemy.
And there's quite an emphasis in the trailer.
There is, isn't there?
Whereas I feel like the trailer has basically given us almost most of the liquor scenes.
Yeah, because the liquor comes.
Except for the point when he gets his head ripped in half by
Lisa Trevor randomly.
Yeah, and it's Lisa Trevor who takes him down. And I know that liquor isn't a main boss.
It's not a
they're
boss,
quite common.
But
because in this first, in the first, is it the first or the second?
Resident Evil 2. Because you go into.
But they're still not an easy thing to in that way.
You mostly run from them until you get the shotgun. until we get loads of ammo, because they're bastards.
That's why we didn't get a suspenseful chase. We didn't get like scenes where they like. It would have been nice to get another scene where he runs into another and you see like the tongue in the background or like chasing him through.
And this is something that's
one of these moments we've talked about several times.
And it's something that works, but not the payoff. And it works really good in the game. Lickers mechanically in the game are great because they're blind and they work on, their vision is based on hearing.
Yeah.
And what we could have had was this really cool scene where Claire and Leon are being chased by the liquor.
Yeah.
And then they're running away from it. And then they have a part where they're like, its vision, it can't hear us and they have to try and sneak from it. Almost a bit like Jurassic Park in the kitchen with the raptors, We could have had this really suspenseful moment.
We never get enough time to even think about it. Like, he's gone in like, by the time we actually see him in front of him, he's gone in about, I don't know, maybe a minute and 30 seconds.
Yeah.
2 minutes later, he's gone.
And it's a shame because I think they have this.
Even adding him to that Chris Redfield scene, if he'd actually gone into the mansion, if we'd had the liquor in the mansion, like that dark scene with the liquor,
that would have been cool.
That would have been pretty badass. Like, even if you had like, I'm literally in my hand straight away going to the Doyle being in front of him, and then suddenly Doyle disappears because something pulls him away.
Yeah.
Imagine that with the liquor. That would have been badass.
Yeah, and then he has to sneak away.
Yeah, and then he's like, suddenly he's realised, like, and then you've got a whole, like, he's by himself, he's in the dark, and that's when he starts to realise that every time he's, like, moving, it's causing, like, something to try and get him. And then, I mean, those kind of things, these are the scenes we wanted to kind of see play out.
And it's unfortunate because I think that the start of the film does have such a good payoff.
It's such an atmospheric build-up and suspenseful build-up.
And the bits of the zombies
shoving stuff in, aren't we?
Then I feel like if they'd have left the liquor out, it could have been potentially better. Or if they'd have included a scene where they're trying to sneak away from the liquor, and they don't even necessarily have to fight it; they're just being chased by it, and they sneak away and manage to get into the orphanage.
But this would So this is, and again, this is where we get things like Lisa Trevor, who's now just a sad story and a support to help them get to the door. And even if she was going to play that role, we could have had it so that she helps them get all the way to the bloody lift before the liquor takes her out or something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Something like that where we have a thing, because we just leave Lisa Trevor, Trevor at the door. We're just there, like the closed doors, and then that's it. We don't see her again.
I'm dying.
We could have been, that whole scene could have just been moved along as well by being, right, you're being chased through the holes of it and she's like getting to here and kind of thing, and they're trying to escape and all that kind of, I feel like we could have had, and we don't. And this then keeps going. So we get this with Birkin. Then.
Yeah, because then we just see Birkin again.
Yeah,
and he's
in the lab. He's
disappeared.
Again, here's another thing that doesn't really the vials.
Yeah,
there's no explanation. Like,
no, there isn't.
You have to basically know what the vials are. If you knew the story, then you know it. If not, you have no idea why. You don't really understand why Albert wants them. Like,
and I think
he's quickly, as we said, that was really unclear. That explanation.
And to be honest,
so when he goes to get them, I was like, okay, I don't really know why you want them. I do remember that those vials play a part in a moment because I remember how
the scene.
Story. But I also don't really get. So you're now fighting over this. I don't get why this has now become such an important thing that you're not trying to survive in a different way. So it now seems stupid that we've got two characters fighting over some vials, and you're about to die for it because this is a stupid plan. You're going up against the guy who's trained with that gun. You're gonna get fucked here.
But there is, like you mentioned, apart from when we get Ben Bertolucci, who's played by Josh Cruddas, he mentions what the T virus is. And then that's it. There's no more mention of it. There's no mention of anything.
He's in the prison cell. Like, we get the video with him in it. Like, that explains a little bit. Then we get him in the cell, and he says, "Don't
you know what the T virus is?" To Leon, and
but we don't. But he doesn't build on it. He just kind of talks about it. So it's kind of like, okay, so you're here. Okay, so now we know the follow up that what happened to you was they trapped you in the prison cell.
Yeah,
you're now not feeding us anymore. If this was a video game, I would expect to then get some more information to be able to go to my next part. You see what I mean? But we don't really. He's kind of in the cell. He's trying to give things. He's just being like kind of condescending to Leon that he doesn't know what he's doing. and then he dies.
Yeah.
And like that's what I mean. Like those kind of like, and that scene wasn't bad either. That in the basement, I quite liked that part. It was quite the zombie in that like was kind of like quite like when he was coming after them and they're trying to work out how to kill him. But going back to like the Birkin bit where the wife gets shot in the head, and all that kind of like plays out. But again, like you don't feel like anyone really you don't really get what I don't even get why the wife dies for him, to be honest, because it kind of like you just seen that he's basically kind of insane in a little bit, but she's committed to the cause, like committed to her man, I guess. But
she's loving her man. But that's the thing. Then it's like if we'd have gone with the original twist where Wesker had worked for Umbrella and done that, then you could have had a more of an actual connection and a scene between Birkin and Wesker, who in the games went through university together and worked on developing the T-virus together and stuff like that.
Yeah,
or developing
this one they're nowhere near that.
In this one, they
never look like the same age. That's the thing. I thought Wesker always looked quite young in the games, whereas Birkin always looks older.
No, Birkin is young in the games as well. He's only in his 20s. I don't really get why they made him. I just guess they do, but I don't know. It felt so that for me it just felt really rushed because then Birkin gets shot. And then he takes the G, which we don't really see. It's implied. We just see an empty needle.
Yeah. He starts to try.
And then Jill shoots Wesker
because she thinks he's going to shoot the girl, and he says he wouldn't have shot the girl, but I'm not convinced. But at this point, I still don't really know and care. But I still don't know if he was a baddie or he just got himself like he had to shoot because he shot. So again, he doesn't actually do anything completely evil.
No,
he shoots the wife, but then the wife shoots.
The wife had,
what I mean. So he's just in a way he's still protecting himself.
So it's a hard one.
He's not really a bad guy in a way.
And then we just get like 5 minutes where we get Birkin, in his first evolution. Although he has like 5 in the game. He's got, with the claw with the eyes.
Instead of one giant eye, he's got like lots of little eyes.
Lots of little eyes. He does have a bigger eye. But he has mainly
it's like loads of eyes kind of thing, which I thought that was a cool thing. I don't think it was quite as cool as in the game.
No, but it was just that there was kind of there wasn't really any build up for Birkin. Apart from the first act, if he'd have been in the second act a bit more, and we do get Claire's flashbacks, but they still don't go into what the G virus is, or they don't go into any of his motivations or anything. Yeah. It's just like he's then in the lab, and
it feels a bit unusual that he's now turning into like the bad guy kind of thing.
Yeah,
it doesn't feel like enough of a. It doesn't feel like enough of a villain.
If anything, it was. I thought, okay, maybe when Wesker gets shot, he's going to inject himself.
They're going to change it.
And it'll be him. And I was kind of like, so Birkin's been in it, and then he's gone, and now he's back, and then
And then we get this one bit, that's when he's with Chris Redfield, and he's going through like the hangar or something like that kind of. And Chris goes back to try and kind of fight him again. This is one of those like lack of character development is really lent to this not really having meaning to us
because like I mentioned earlier, he says, you weren't like you were never like a son to me or something like that, and it feels as if they filmed loads of stuff with Robbie Amell and potentially with Birkin, and they filmed more of the stuff, and they've cut them out because
more Claire and things like that.
Because I guess it's supposed to be this emotional moment where, because earlier in the film when we see that badly photoshopped picture of Birkin and Redfield, he says, him and Umbrella have been like a father to me, the only family I've got,
all that kind of thing.
So I was like, okay, we actually going to have a bit of like interaction between them, and
where we actually get a conversation where maybe we feel like where Birkin's maybe been kind of playing him this whole time.
Yeah,
you get that kind of sense that he's always been
or
Redfield's kind of a bit like like a bit like an Anakin with a Palpatine kind of like felt that kind of that bond where he feels like he can't break it kind of thing.
Yeah.
Then it would have felt a bit more when he's like, right, now I've got to kind of kill you. But again, because all the scenes that play out with Birkin and stuff like that, where Chris very much ends up being the one to step forward to take him out or things like that, don't pay off because he's not he's not really like
you haven't had the scenes, and then Birkin gets beat by Claire with the shotty, and then they get on the train, which I liked because that's what it's like at the end of RE2, and I was thinking, okay,
this all felt like a big long play out because we had the whole Birkin bit. Then we have him on the floor after that, and then we see that he's like shaking and starting to evolve again.
Yeah,
but this all felt like lots. But it didn't feel like never felt like one big boss fight.
No,
it just felt like little scenes instead of one big moment. And the bit on the train is probably the bit where I was most like, this is the most anticlimactic of all of the parts we've had so far. We've had the build up. So, okay, we've had a build up. So now he's transforming. He could transform into something really like cool and things like that. I can't remember. Is that what his final form looks like like on the train? Because
final form it basically looks like a massive pussy, basically.
Okay,
and he starts to like swallow the train whole.
Yeah, like the train bit. I like
the one that he turned into.
It's weird because the train in the 2002 Resident Evil that kind of concludes on a train with the monster trying to get like that
with the liquor,
with the liquor trying to get.
Because they're trying to get out.
Again, that was actually a better use of the liquor in that film. He worked better in that film. Did. I think that he didn't where it was a lot bigger and it was played up as a bigger monster than the liquor in that film. But still, like. We're on the train. It's all very like happy families. Like again now, where we've got the daughter who seems to have completely forgot that her parents died 2 minutes ago.
Yeah,
like she literally seems perfectly fine. Like, I feel like even like if our parents just died now, we'd be like, "What the fuck are we doing?"
Yeah, I'd be heartbroken.
You know what I mean? We would be completely. So a little girl, I feel like it doesn't even look like shock. She's just like. Yeah, this is an interesting conversation you guys are having.
That's my new mummy and daddy.
Like Chris and Claire, my mummy. That's even my mummy and daddy. My mummy and daddy aren't meant to do naughty things, but they do.
Yeah.
But yeah, they kind of sat there like Chris and Claire are like that close when it's like, no, you're not. We haven't had anything that gives us any of that kind of.
We did in Act 1. We had this estranged relationship they're supposed to have had with Birkin.
But
feeling
didn't give us any
but it not fleshed out properly. And then Birkin
doing the
train and then
rips off the roof again.
He rips the roof off
again. 2000. It just reminded me again, very 2000, like because the bottom instead of the top, it's the bottom gets ripped out in the or the top gets ripped out, then he gets killed by getting sucked into the bottom. But I was just like, oh, this is really reminding me of the 2002 ending right now.
And then they shoot him.
Well, there's one part of the design I really like, which is where Birkin's face, which actually looks quite cool.
Yeah.
Where Birkin's face has become this kind of like as if it was stuck in the skin kind of thing. And it was kind of all very kind of the Thing-like, where the face is kind of stretched into the skin kind of thing. Like, that looked really cool. But then when you actually looked at the actual monster face, the weird yellow, like the teeth, yellow eyes, this kind of... I didn't like the design at all.
It wasn't particularly great.
It looked very... uncreative. It looked like, okay, you've kind of just taken the what am I thinking? The rag out of Star Wars, the Rancor kind of thing. It kind of looked like a mini version head of the Rancor, kind of looked like, but more like obviously body horror. But the bit with Birkin's face, and obviously Claire stabs Birkin in the face.
Yeah, and then Leon gets a rocket launcher and just blows him up. And the rocket launcher is what you can get on. In the remake of Resident Evil 2. And it looks very authentic, but it all happens in the space of about 10 minutes. And
I don't think even 10 minutes.
Probably
I think
not.
Literally, the roof gets ripped off.
Oh, no, I mean from his first transformation.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah. So that's what I mean. But the bit on the train is literally the roof gets ripped off. He grabs Claire, which again feels unnatural because he's got Claire in the big hands, which kind of makes it feel like he would have just destroyed her. But instead she then gets more kind of brought close to him. The train starts to a little bit. She stabs the face of because Chris is trying to shoot at him, but
shoots
not really,
the eyes,
that kind of thing, and she stabs him. That's what caused it. Leon walks in with a rocket launcher, blast, boom. Back of the train just blows off. I was expecting maybe him to try crawl back up or something like that, but it said no, that was it. I was like, okay, this has literally been about a minute or so.
And then it just ends.
Really just threw me off. Like, this isn't a boss fight. A boss fight. That would be the most disappointing boss fight if I played that game. Like, oh fuck! What I killed? Like that's all I had to do. Get Leon, get the rocket launcher, and it's over. Really? That's it?
Yeah, it's kind of.
I was disappointed when you played Resident Evil, and that was the ending.
Yeah, it's kind of a shame.
Yeah,
and I mean
it seems a waste of Birkin, who I feel is much more interesting.
Who's an iconic villain in the franchise, you know.
Yeah, even if he does turn into a giant pussy, it's still like it still would have been better.
But when you play it, it's terrifying because it's this thing which is just so much bigger than you, and it's slowly moving towards you, and it's not something that, you know, if it gets you, you're going to die, and it just.
It's also, this is where because this would have played out a lot nicer if they'd stayed in some giant hangar or giant room or something like that where you had to do more dodge or in the match or whatever. But because the whole we need to be out of here by 6 a.m, they were also kind of binking it into that to be like, we've got to keep moving now. Yeah. When before they didn't feel in too much of a rush to keep moving, but now they need to get on this train out of here, and then we get a whole like exploding. We get a really weird cow bit, which didn't look very real. It was weird. It was like a Twister kind of moment. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like the cow kind of flows away with the rest of the town. Where is Resident Evil 3 set then?
In Raccoon City. It's set at the same time.
Oh, okay. The first, that's why I'm getting confused. I was like, I swear 3 was set in Raccoon City, so that's why I was getting confused.
Resident Evil 1, I think, is set in July. I think it's in July or August.
Yeah.
And then, so that's about the STARS team going into the mansion like we get here. And then the mansion blows up. Yeah. And then kind of some of the experiments that were there that didn't die escape. So you get zombie dogs in the woods. And it slowly starts to spread. You get rats that are infected. And it goes into the town. Jill Valentine stays trying to expose Umbrella. But Chief Irons covers it all up because he's corrupt and he's on the books. And then Chris Redfield leaves. And then obviously Claire comes into town to look for Chris. Leon comes for his first day. So that's Resident Evil 2. And then Resident Evil 3 is whilst the city's starting to fall down, September the 28th, I think it is, whilst the city's starting to be overrun and people are starting to leave and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And the zombies, the infections kind of spread and everything. That's when Umbrella send Nemesis in to kill the surviving STARS members, which is Jill and Brad, I think, at the time.
Okay.
And yeah, for me, just like
so that doesn't make sense.
No, but what I think that they should have done, because the end of this with Birkin feels very much as if it was the end of the sequel to this film. What I think they should have done is they should have had Resident Evil 1, just Spencer Mansion, and you know, you could have fleshed that out a bit more.
I think this quite easily could have just been a bit with the opening start where they go to the mansion. I think a lot of this film could have literally been long scenes that spent. I feel like maybe the directors balked a bit at the idea that, oh no, we need to add more action. When I would say actually, this could there are some great horror films where the whole film is basically just slow parts in the moving through places.
What they could have done is they could have explored because in the first Resident Evil you have the Spencer Mansion where most of it takes, but then you also have like a groundkeeper's cabin building, like a not like a rec center, but you have a room that's got like a bar in it and it's like some quarters for people to live in. That's a place. And then you have the underground labs, and they could have explored this more, because in this Wesker goes down the lab and then it's just like one room whereas I think what they could have done is they could have if they'd have just made that and fleshed it out, and then we'd have had the original twist with Wesker working for Umbrella, and then we could have just had Tyrant, you know, the end of Resident Evil 1, and you could have just done that. And then for a sequel, what you could have done is you could have then had the story of Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 3 happening together. And then with that, you could have had Jill Valentine, Hannah, I can't remember her name, Hannah, John Kamen come back as Jill Valentine. And then you could have just had Robbie Amell as Chris Redfield. Instead of going somewhere, he could have stayed with Jill.
So many characters in as well.
Yeah, you could have had that. I mean,
I feel like it does feel a little bit like they've made it harder for themselves with a sequel.
Kind of, yeah.
You know what I mean?
I've heard that. I mean, that
now they're going to have to. Nemesis is so iconic. I can't imagine them not thinking about it. But they're going to have to introduce them in a different way.
Because I've heard
pretty much now they've got to introduce them without Raccoon City.
Well, they did. They introduced the Ashford twins in what I thought was quite cool. Where where they were watching the old kind of video reel.
Yeah,
I'm sure that the video they showed was actually the same video that is in the Code Veronica game. Exactly. Oh, right. It's not, they didn't reshoot it. It's the actual video FX, the CGI one. I mean, it looked so much like it. I'm sure it was. And what I've heard is that if he wants to do a sequel, or if he gets a sequel, that he wants to do Code Veronica and eventually Resident Evil 4, which will be interesting. But I don't know. I think for me,
Resident Evil 4 would adapt.
Yeah, well, it would adapt quite well. If done well.
And I think there's the director, I think he needs to learn that he doesn't need so much, in a way, that the action doesn't need to be like what it is here. And we also need to pick moments and choose to follow those moments.
Yeah.
Not just try to stuff in all of the bits. It's like an excited child trying to get all of it in. And if you'd cut a couple of these moments, these characters out and brought them back later, even if it wasn't in the same time frame, that's fine. And again, some things that work in games where you've got 10, 12 hours of gameplay, where you've had lots of characters and you have lots of time to flesh them out and things like that, work. But really, things like things like Lisa and things like that could have easily been like, let's maybe save them for when we can flesh them out properly.
And I get why you'd want to do them, because the cool characters.
Well, that character in that instance worked well with the backstory they'd created for Claire. That character did work well. But in which case, it's more of a case of maybe get rid of the plot about Raccoon City blowing up by 6 a.m. Give us a little bit more time to have more of a chance with Raccoon City. Maybe change it a little bit, maybe, before, they kind of end the film where the city's still kind of there and we've still got more to go kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean...
Instead of destroyed, but, just to give us a bit more chance kind of thing to get to know these characters before it's like, oh, they go.
Because for me, like, I enjoyed a vast majority of the film. But it was kind of like... Now, this is going to be a weird analogy, but it's kind of like, imagine you have lined up like a runway and you've got to jump over like 10 cars, like Evel Knievel style. You act one, you're revving the engine and you're driving towards it, and it's cool, and you're like, this is going to be awesome, I'm setting up this class. And then Act 2 starts and you hit the, you jump up and you reach these heights.
Adrenaline rises.
The adrenaline's there. We've got the going into the Spencer Mansion. We've got the zombie scenes. The really cool action scenes. We've got some good stuff happening with Claire and Leon at this time as well. And then as it gets into the third act, you look down and you think you're just about to hit, the other side of the ramp, but you just hit and you don't. You fall really short, You
just land and it's a bit of
you land and you break your legs.
No, I do. I agree. It didn't quite live up to what I didn't have high expectations. To be fair. But it didn't quite reach there. It just felt like a lot of the atmosphere and stuff we'd built up early in the film doesn't have a payoff. It doesn't have a strong enough payoff. The film comes to an odd ending, and again, this is another bit where they do the whole data. The information props up with the whole city statistics at the end in the green, and I get that that's another little wink kind of thing.
Wink,
but again, I don't
feels
think
out
it works.
Place, doesn't it?
It doesn't work with the style of the film. It just feels like, okay, why is that there? What's that? And to anyone watching, they're like, what the fuck's going on? Why? It's those little moments where I don't think the directors really thought about how this is going to cross over, because I believe it could have easily crossed. This is the thing. I feel like this franchise. I thought for ages that this franchise. People say again, it doesn't work for film and things like that. And like the Netflix. I know there's a Netflix series in production, but it's a different one. It's more about the backstory. It's not the fleshing out the actual full story. So however that works, I don't know. But I believe that this totally could work as a film. You just needed to lean into that suspense and atmosphere. It doesn't even have to be about the gore, but you needed to lean more into the suspense and atmosphere, allow scenes to play out longer, and cut the cast down and cut the moments down. You don't need all of these moments. It's like you thought it was going to be like really exciting, when really it just ends up being more disappointing. You don't get to live it in the way you want to. You don't get to flesh out that monster, the types of zombies. Like even the zombies feel a bit background half the time here. It feels like we don't get that many scenes with the zombies even. Like, not saying you always do in the games, but it definitely didn't feel like we got some of those big moments. Just the payoff isn't there, and that's for me why the film ended up feeling a little bit bland, a little bit like right back there in a kind of it didn't feel like anything necessarily new, which it's not, because it's trying to be a game from the 90s, which is fine. I liked the tone, I liked the style. There were lots of strong things about it. I just think it's just a bit in the middle there. It's not one. We've talked about films where a lot of our third acts have kind of not quite petered, Halloween Kills and Ghostbusters Afterlife, but I would say that those two films are still like far stronger, better made films than this film is.
Yeah, definitely.
I feel like I fair play to being such a lover of the games, to Johannes Roberts, and enjoying and loving the games and trying his hardest, obviously, to bring it to life. Fair play, and you do a better job than Paul Anderson ever could, because he's a bit of a hack. I don't even know if he's ever played the games.
We're calling him
I think
out.
you saw a picture, but those kind of things. I get that, but sadly, I just think you've got too excited and tried to stuff too much in there. And I don't completely disagree with a lot of the critics' reviews. That's their main problem. They say atmospherics and stuff you got right. Stuffing it full of things leads to moments that are underwhelming. That's pretty much it.
I think
that's what I read in part of a review the other day. I was like, okay, I kind of get it now. I get why there might be 2 or 3 star reviews. I wouldn't say 2. 3. I'd say right there in the
3 is
middle.
fine for me.
It's me. 3 star out of a 5. 3 star right in the middle there for me would be fine. It's an enjoyable thing. It's an enjoyable experience. If you love the games, I think you're really going to love it. You might even say a 3.5 or a.
It would be a
4. Not a 4. Maybe a 3.5.
Maybe a 3.5 if I'm being.
Just for the games, but I wouldn't say it's anything more than that. It's and I said this earlier, it's a Sony film. It's right bang in the free or around free market. Because I couldn't think of a Sony film that was really outside of the Spider-Man films, basically like the good Spider-Man films. I couldn't really name.
No, we had that conversation, didn't we?
Into the Spider-Verse, Spider-Man 1, Spider-Man 2. That's the best that Sony's managed to produce that I could think of the top of my head.
Well, I mean, I hope you've enjoyed this. And, I mean, the review's gone on longer than I think we kind of planned it to. And next week, we are getting stuck into the first Paul W.S. Anderson?
Yes.
We're getting stuck
the
into
original 2002 Resident Evil.
Yeah, we're getting stuck into the 2002 Resident Evil. And it's going to be looking at that film, but also potentially a bit of a comparison piece with this one. And that will be out on Monday the 13th. So as always, if you've enjoyed the show, hit the subscribe button, leave us a lovely review, and share the show on social media. It always helps out. And we will see you on the 13th. Goodbye.